Get ready for some hardcore action. Oh yeah.
Business is about to kick off.
That's what we're talking about.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't. I need help now. The Undertaker got my family. Damn it. I need help. Now come on. What a volatile, explosive situation. Look out. Look out. Oh my God in heaven. What the hell? No. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Oh my God. Don't you dare do that. The God, there's people in there. There's people in there. Oh my God in heaven. What the hell? No. 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 Say that. We need doctors out here. If somebody can get off their butt in the back and get some people out here. My God, don't do
That's
that.
right, today on the SuperCaZt, it's Police Story. Let's go.
And welcome back to the SuperCaZt, everybody. I'm your host, the man who put the super in SuperCaZt, the Super Foch, and as always, I'm joined by my good buddy and co-host.
Steve Z, the man who put the Z in SuperCaZt.
And we hope you guys are having a wonderful week, weekend, wherever you are, whenever you are listening to this. We just thank you guys for joining us on a pretty awesome episode. I'm really excited to talk about this film.
Oh yeah, man. Super energy tonight. I mean, because this movie is super energetic. Talking about Police Story. This is a film that I just found it at a critical part of my life when I was getting into action films. Really hadn't seen that many martial arts films, and this is one that I watched. Didn't get the full experience the second time I watched it because it was on TV, and then later it was dubbed. But finally, got it, and it clicked for me, and I wanted to share it with you a long, long time ago. But
Yeah.
it just the timing wasn't right. But I think now you are at this stage in your film watching experience, my friend, to experience and truly enjoy this film. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it. So go ahead.
You know, I really did enjoy this film. I thought it was... Actually, I did not know what to expect. I've kind of gone into these films trying not to have too many expectations, just because I'm usually wrong. and especially with a title like Police Story, I remember thinking about that for a bit. And I'm like, all right, this could go a couple of different ways. And I don't think I was even right on the way it actually went. So that tells you, my luck. But I am familiar with Jackie Chan, and I think the first thing you have to say is, if you're not familiar with Jackie Chan, where have you been living for the last few years? Because this guy is pretty much, world renowned, very good actor, and of course a martial arts legend. And I think that's how we should start this thing, is just talking about this guy, because he definitely really owns this film, and I really enjoyed his performance, as I have in several things that he's been in.
面要直啲，眼大啲，口大啲，大啲，再大啲啊！啊！唉，算啦算啦，做翻你自己啦，你都係自然啲好嘅。預備，嗱，我要個手療喺畫面中間嚇，動作要神氣啲，你落啲。
Yeah, this is his film. This is got his hands all over it, because the Jackie Chan experience, if you're not familiar, it's generally the films where he's acting in it, he's choreographing it, and he's directing it. And that's what we have here. He's the triple threat. And I guess he pretty much had a lot to do with the writing of it too. Police Story is Jackie Chan doing his thing, because it's part action, it's part comedy. It's got a lot of crazy stunts, because this man,
Right.
yeah, he's into the whole martial arts thing. He's into that, but he's also inspired by
Yes, he is.
like the silent film stars like Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd, Charlie Chaplin. I mean, that's just as much of his things. And Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, those are his inspirations. So, yeah, he's a fighter, and you get a lot of that in this film. But you also get a lot of that, I don't know, it's that whimsical sort of feel of like a silent era, or the slapstick of like a Marx Brothers film, or something else that you would get in like a musical even. It's very nice how it blends all these different tones, and that's what stands out to me about the Jackie Chan experience. But what did you think about just his directing and how he was able to pull this film off?
I had no idea how you direct a film like this and star in it, and I can't imagine the workload this guy put himself on, because he's all over the place, and the action's all over the place. So I can't say enough good stuff about Jackie Chan. I mean, I don't know how you do what he did for this film, with everything that he did do. So really give him props on that. This film was really funny, and that's something that I think a lot of people, even if you haven't seen a lot of his martial arts stuff, you've seen him in comedies. People know, like the Shanghai Noon movies and stuff like that. And so I knew going in that he had comedy chops, but man, is he funny in this film. So he's got really good comedic timing. And as you mentioned, Buster Keaton and Chaplin, who I'm also huge fans of. And that's something that I was actually kind of surprised about, how much of influence, because you do see it in some of the scenes that he does, and it makes sense with how he is. So I think he's a really funny guy. He has really good comedic timing, and he's just awesome. He's just a fun guy, and he really, as you mentioned, he really puts his fingerprints on this film. This is a Jackie Chan film, and I don't know, it was something that you can't really prepare for, as far as I was concerned. But I had a lot of fun with it, and so it was great.
And I guess I think that's something that anybody that has not seen a lot of Hong Kong type action films, you probably should be prepared for. Is they're kind of like this. They're kind of like an anything goes sort of film, and the comedy is usually sprinkled in there in heavy dosage, and it's typically slapstick and sort of like sex jokes and just silly stuff that we get in a lot in this film. And going back to what you were saying, how this man, you were surprised how overworked he is. Listen to this fact, dude.
Yeah.
Notice how this movie, a lot of the scenes took place at night? You know why?
What's that?
The dude was shooting 2 films at the same time. He would shoot this one at night.
Great.
And I just can't imagine that workload. Especially the mall scenes. The mall scene, they had to do it like all in the night when the mall was closed, and clean up before the mall opened the next day. So it's a very much a filmmaking marvel. I'm so glad it worked out the way it did too, because to me this is like the ultimate Jackie Chan experience. It's got some of the most intense action, especially from the get-go. Like it just starts off running and going crazy, and then it gets into the hilarity and stuff, but then it ends like probably the most brutal fight scene I think I've ever seen the man take place in. It's just rough, and it's awesome, and it gets me out of my seat. I want to cheer, and I'm ready to get into this. None of this just talking silly about it. Let's get into the actual movie.
Definitely.
This movie starts off with a bang, doesn't it?
Does indeed.
Yeah, we see our main hero. It depends on which version of this film you're watching. He's either Kakui, or they just call him Chan, or sometimes he's referred to as Jackie. Depends on if it's dubbed, subbed, whatever. But basically, he and his group preparing for this strike mission because they're trying to take down this drug lord. Don't need to mention the guy's name. You just know he's a drug lord. He's a bad dude. Needs to be good, taken in. And it starts off okay. Everybody's got their parts. Everybody knows what to do. But then it just goes downhill. And to me, I just love it how this film just starts off. Just you get dropped in. The exposition, it tells you all the story just in a few little snippets. The music kind of gets you into it too, because it's like building tension. and I just love it. What did you think about it?
I'm the exact same way. I love this because I felt like I knew going into this film, even not knowing as much as you, I knew going into this film that there would be a lot of action and the movie would probably go at a pretty brisk pace. So I was really prepared for that, and I really appreciated the fact that he didn't waste any time in getting that started, because a lot of movies, especially on our side of the pond, has to build up stuff and then it gets to the big stuff, and then you have your big finales and whatnot. Well, with this guy, it's just like, no, boom, you're in it to win it, and then he kind of slows it down, and then it, and I prefer that a lot of the times, especially if it's something like this, because I feel like that, I came here for one reason only, and that's to see Jackie Chan do his thing, and I don't have to wait to see it. And fortunately, he does it. And I didn't know this. You didn't tell me, but this was made in '85, so this is as old as we are, by the way, dude. And Jackie Chan wasn't the huge megastar at the time, at least on our side of the pond at that time. So to see this before all the other stuff that he would end up doing, I thought he was just really impressive. And we're gonna give Jackie Chan a lot of credit here, and I don't think we have enough time to give him all the credit he deserves, with him, as you mentioned, directing, writing, choreographing, and acting. And so to start the way he did, I thought was a brilliant move, because it really lets you know what kind of a movie you're in for. And I thought that was a really good idea to just not waste time and just get into it. So yeah, that's the way to go for me.
Yeah, and it's as a showstopper, or actually we probably should say the bus stopper, because that last stunt that it ends with, because that's the way this thing goes, is like it just keeps building up. Like it just starts off, it's just a gunfight. A lot of people running around shooting guns and this chaotic village scene. And then all of a sudden they're getting cars and they're running through the buildings and everything. And like you're saying, this movie was in '85, and a lot of people saw this film and they were inspired. They kind of like this action sequence kind of inspired a lot of stuff, and it was cool to see how Jackie, he really brings it. Like you were saying, he wanted to make his imprint.
Indeed.
He's like, okay, let's show them something they've never seen before. Like, when have you ever seen a guy run around with an umbrella and grab onto a double-decker bus? And I mean, the dude's crazy. I mean, that's just nuts. I mean, and to stand in front of a bus as it's slamming on its brakes.
Yeah.
And those poor dudes that get flung out the window. What? Man, how much did they pay them? I mean,
I don't know. Probably not enough, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, and that's why I love these Hong Kong films, because they do not pull the punches. Because I've seen American movies that actually do these same stunts, but they usually cut certain parts. So you realize there's a stunt double. You realize this is not Jackie Chan out there standing in front of a bus. But he does it for real. And I guess we will give people like Tom Cruise credit, because he does it too, sort of in the same style. But this is the Jackie Chan show. This is a police story. And everybody that has not seen this film, at least give the first 10 minutes a shot. You might get sucked in, because this first 10 minutes, it is intense. And it also brings in my favorite theme song. I've got to get into it before we get going, because this film has an awesome theme song, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Yeah, it's so 80s, builds up the action. And did you listen to the version at the end of the film?
Yeah, I did, actually.
You know who that singer is?
It sounded familiar.
That's Jackie.
No kidding.
Yeah, Jackie's...
a guy does it all.
Yeah, Jackie had a hit on the Hong Kong radio from this movie, too.
Good for him.
Yeah, the dude's a...
Golly.
Dude is a Renaissance man.
I'm telling you, man. One of the things that this movie does... we talked about a film a couple of weeks ago that did the same thing. But it's the shifting in tones. And that's something that you don't see a lot of in American films. Like, they don't do a whole lot of tone shifting. They do some, but you definitely see it overseas, and especially with martial arts films and that kind of thing. And I think that's one of the things that, if you're not prepared for it, it is kind of jarring, and it is kind of like okay, we're gonna go in this direction now. Talk to me about your experience with that, and what do you like about the shifting tones thing, and what do you not like about it? Is there anything that's negative for you in your watching experience for that?
Yeah, see, I'm lucky because I kind of got built up to it. I mean, I did
Right.
not start off with this film. I did not start off with like Stephen Chow's like most obscure, craziest
Yeah.
films. It took me a while to get into it. Like I started with the Jackie Chan films of the '90s, and they had some comedy in them, but it was just so silly and lighthearted. You just kind of roll with it. I guess it's very similar to like the Roger Moore Bond films. I guess the best sort of comparison I can have. So I had an experience with that, just the balance of the comedy with the stakes and just the cool fights. And what really got me for it is, I guess, like I said, Stephen Chow. Stephen Chow is the brilliant man of it. And he has this one film in particular. It's called The King of Comedy. And in that film, as you guess, it's a comedy. And you're laughing for most of it. But then all of a sudden, it'll get to like a very depressing scene where you realize, you know what, this main character is a very sad person. And then you're like thinking about that for a bit. And then all of a sudden, it gets very intense. Like, oh my gosh, a lot of people just got killed. I'm like, what the heck? And we kind of have that in this film. Except it's the opposite. Like we start off hardcore. We have the action. Then we have this whole drug lord going to jail. Jackie's got to protect the witness. But then it gets very silly because they're like, okay, let's get our main hero. Let's get into pose for pictures. And after that, he's having to protect the witness. And then it comes to like a screwball comedy all of a sudden. It's like, ooh, what's going to happen to them? How is he going to embarrass himself with his girlfriend? And it just kind of like just shifts, and it stays there for most of the film until, like I said, there's occasionally scenes where the action comes back in and the danger gets real again. And I love it how our character, Chan, he kind of recognizes that. He goes from just like lighthearted making jokes to all of a sudden he's out of breath, and it's like, okay, something just changed here. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and you see it throughout film where they have different things like that. But with this film specifically, there's really good performances from the women of the film, and I want to get into those and talk about some of those performances and what stands out for you.
Jackie, if he's in a scene with a male, he's probably doing something where he's kind of like gonna fight or something. But if he's in with like a female, he's gonna be playing off them. Maybe they're gonna do some comedy, and that's the thing about these two performers in this one. They both have different sort of things going on, and it's also this. He's got this lady he's supposed to protect, and that's Selena. She's the secretary or the assistant for the drug lord, and they got to get her. But she's kind of a reluctant witness, but at the same time. Jackie's trying to protect her because she's looking out for her own skin. Plus, these people are trying to intimidate her to get her not to take the stand. So she's got all that going. But at the same time, the writing, the comedy behind it is that they keep getting these weird situations where there's sexual innuendo, or it seems like, he's got the hots for her or something, you know? But he doesn't, and that's the funny part about it. And she really doesn't like him. She finds him repulsive, and that's why I like Bridget Lynn. She's very believable in this role. Like, she shifts a lot. She goes from like, oh, I'm pretty serious now, I need to protect myself, to all of a sudden she's doing silly stuff like the very beginning of the film whenever Jackie pretends like he's going to spit in her face or something. You have to see what I'm talking about to know what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
But even that, or whenever she sits on the cactus and is getting him to record this stuff that hilariously comes out as the testimony later in the film. But that aside, the thing that really I love in this film is Maggie Chung as May. She's like a scene stealer in my opinion. Just because her character's, she's written very one-dimensional. She's just there to be this girlfriend that walks in at the wrong time, gets the wrong idea, throws a cake in Jackie's face. Or just like, oh my gosh, how could you? But at the same time, she's just so lovable. She's a klutz. She falls down a lot. I love it the scene where she's on her moped, she's trying to drive off because she's so angry, and he's like, no, and then like the moped's going crazy. Very good physical comedy, and also she's very believable in this role as the angry girlfriend, but she's not annoying in any way. I think she's got a lot of charm to the part, and it's one of those things that the more you watch this film, the more you appreciate why she's included in the film, not just as like as a punching bag or not a punching bag, as a comedic sort of mechanism, but she's there as the heart of the film. She's what Jackie basically gives him the courage to do the fighting at the end, to get him to go and do that final confrontation. So that's pretty cool. I don't want to get too deep with this, but I really like her in this film. I think she adds a lot to it.
Yeah, definitely. So we get into the comedy and the light parts, and we've already kind of talked about that and how that kind of shifts throughout the film. Talk about some of those comedic parts and what works for you from a comedy standpoint.
I think just whenever the scene I was just talking about, whenever he first brings the secretary home and he's trying to protect her, they just had this intense scene, the little part in the parking lot where they got attacked. And that's just kind of like where your mind has been. It's just like, oh, that was so intense. And then he brings her back home. Like, oh, I guess they're just going to chill out now. And then all of a sudden, there's a surprise party for his character. And the girlfriend gets all mad and shoves a cake in his face because he's like, how could you? That to me is just like a dying laughing part that I just lose it when I see that. It's so great. I mean, it's Jackie's character, it's the girls in the film, but just the police officers too. Everybody in this film has that comedic aspect to their performance, and it's just a very funny film. So many times I'm just dying laughing.
Right. Is there any specific scene? I know we were going to talk here a little bit about some scenes, but is there any other scenes as far as the comedy? Like, I guess we can go ahead and talk about the police station scene, talk about that and what you think about that scene.
Oh, yeah. No, that's me asking you about that because I've got my theory because I just want to get your thoughts on it.
Okay, my bad. I went ahead too far. Sorry.
Yeah, that's... Okay, so this film, it gets very lighthearted, but then they frame Jackie's character, and stakes get raised and stuff. And then we have this scene in the police station where, I don't know, it gets... I wanted to ask your opinion because I think it's up to interpretation how you're supposed to take it. It's either things just got real, things are intense, our character's so desperate, he's threatened to like kill his superior officer. He's chewing out his superior officer. He's basically going all Rambo on him. He's like, how dare you people, you order us what to do, you make us risk our lives. It gets really intense. So I'm like, is this supposed to be intense, or is this some act that he's putting on just to kind of throw off the people, and are they in on it too? Because it seems like a superior officer might be, because the way he's just like, you can stop putting the gun at me now. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's supposed to be taken as an intense scene, or is it supposed to be taken as this is just how these guys are? They're so good, such a good police force. They have plans for when stuff like this happens. They know how to act and how to throw the people off the trail. I don't know, man. It's
really funny that you say that, because I think this is one of the scenes that we talked about before that kind of made me like, I wasn't sure myself. Like, I did not know, because some of the times within these films, they're real dramatic. They're played dramatic, but they're supposed to be for comedic. And then sometimes they're being dramatic and it's supposed to be dramatic. So sometimes as a person that's not as familiar with these films, I get a little bit confused, and this one definitely did that for me. So I was going to ask you, man, about this scene. I mean, I really was not sure, because it seemed serious, and I kind of took it more of a serious thing. But that was the one particular scene I remember making a mental note. Like, I gotta ask Steve about this because I just it was weird. Like, I really could not figure it out. So I was trying to get you to explain it to me and see what you thought.
Yeah, I think the first few times I watched it, I took it more of like the serious thing, and it could be that. It could be this is the part of the film where it kind of changes, where even though you probably could say that it changes after the trial goes awry. That's where things kind of get more dramatic. But to me, it also, I could see it sort of in a lighthearted way, like maybe he's not meaning this stuff. He's just putting on an act to kind of throw people off, to make him think that he's crazy or something like that. Yeah. Because we don't really see this anger, this animosity too much else in the film. We don't see this resentment toward his superior anywhere else too much. So I don't think it's that big of a dramatic scene if you look at it that way. So I don't know. Right. I think you're justified either way, but I'm leaning more towards the latter now.
I think that's one of the most interesting things about the way films like these are set up, as opposed to how they would be set up over here. Is, we've already talked about the shift in tones, and that happens a lot within martial arts films and that sort of thing. So that's to be understood, and you have to get kind of used to that. But it does make for because you're like, okay, because they play them really emotional. There's a lot of high emotion in both a comedic and a serious scene, because they're either trying to play for a laugh or they're trying to show emotion. And I think you're right. I think it's kind of at least unless I miss something, or it's just clearly understood, this is supposed to mean that, or whatever, that I guess it is more of a interpretation kind of thing. And that's cool with me. That's fine, because I'm the audience member and I'm supposed to have my own thoughts and everything. So but this scene in particular was just kind of fun because I don't know, for some reason I couldn't figure it out. So I was gonna get your opinion on it, but it sounds like we have kind of the same idea. So
yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you brought like sort of the energy and sort of the intensity this film has, because I think that's the big thing, is everybody that worked on this film brings it 100%. Like every single scene, they commit to this tone, they commit to this action, they commit to all of this, and that's what makes it work. It's how silly it gets, how dangerous it gets. Everybody's going all out, and I think the best part of this is the ball scene, the big showstopper. The showstoppers. I mean, have you seen an action scene that's like this ever?
No, I was trying to rack my brain, and I was like, I don't know how they pulled this off. I mean, that was pretty incredible, especially for that time period. And we were talking 30-something years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just it was amazing. I kind of want to watch it again just because I was so enthralled by it. In fact, I think that was probably my favorite part of the whole film, because it was just such a spectacle, and as you said, showstopper. And that was really impressive.
It's insanely impressive, and
yeah,
I just can't believe how they were able to pull this off with these shots that he does with the camera, but also just these guys, they put their bodies on the line. It's to me, I thought you would get a kick out of it just because this is like professional wrestling on steroids. It's like people being thrown onto escalators and thrown through glass and just smashed in the face. It's amazing. They are not pulling punches. They are kicking each other in the face as hard as they can. And to me, it's different than any other fight, because most fights you see like this, they come at him one at a time. But not in this. They just swarm Jackie. He's getting punched. He's getting kicked. He has to use the objects to kind of help himself. And it's just so brutal and so intense. And like, there's actually one part where I'm like, how did he not just die through that? Because they threw him off the ledge. You see him in one shot. He gets thrown off. He lands, and then he gets up off the ground after a little bit. He's like, you can tell he's dazed. Then he runs off to go fight some more. It's like, dude, this guy is intense. And I don't know, like you're saying, is your jaw should be on the table whenever you watch this. You should be just like, because that's the way that it is. It's that fast. It's that intense.
Right.
And that's, like you said, it makes you want to come back and watch it again because I just can't compare it to any other action sequences.
And you have to go, like we said earlier, you have to go in here not thinking of this film like you would like an American film. It is shot, it's written, it's, everything, there's just a lot more, kind of raises everything up a level as far as your expectation or whatever. I mean, and I think this fight scene in the mall kind of proves that. I mean, you might see a scene like this in an American film, but go half the way this thing goes. I mean, like you said, there's some of the scenes where you're like, that guy's dead. There's no way that guy survived that. And I really give props to that because shooting these scenes like this cannot be easy, and I'm always marveled by that kind of thing, especially when you're talking about computer generated stuff where you could add stuff in there post or whatever. That they had to do everything for real, or as real as they could without actually hopefully killing anybody. But yeah, it's an amazing spectacle, and I think that's the biggest word coming out of this film that I could give is how much of a spectacle it is. And I think even with the shift in tones and a few scenes that are just kind of head scratchers, I think this film is one that, and we talked about this before we started, I think this film that may catch somebody like myself that's not used to these kind of films off guard a little bit. But if I go back and watch it for the second time, I think things tend to make a little bit more sense and make that even more enjoyable. I mentioned the John Wick films over before we started, and how the first one I had to watch twice before I loved it and then liked it, and same with the others. But I think in this film in particular, just because of everything that's going on, it's incredible. It's an incredible film that I don't think gets a lot of praise that it deserves. Personally, I think this film is a very interesting watch, and I think that's why we talked about it and we're trying to promote it because of it's an incredible film, especially for that time period.
Yeah, and I think though it's like you said, it might be a little lesser known, but those that know they know that this is This is one of those films that influenced a lot that came after it. It raised the bar. I mean, just looking at the stunts, and like you were saying, I just had to go back to this because you said no computer enhancements, none of that.
Right.
That final stunt, Jackie jumps. I don't know how many stories that is. 3 or 4 stories, sliding down that rail.
Yeah.
The dude, he burned his hands so bad after that. From that, I mean, because that's electricity. It's just like he just did it. He just jumps out there, grabs on it, it's burning his hands. He lands through that glass. He dislocates his hip. Then he gets up during that take because he has to make the shot go on. I mean, it's insane. And that's the thing that gets me going back to this film. That gets me going. It's such a spectacle, like you were saying, and at the same time, it's an entertainment experience, and that's what I think some movies are. That's their only goal, is just to entertain you. This film brings it all. It brings the comedy. It brings the love story. It brings the slapstick. We haven't even mentioned the phone sequence. I mean,
no.
What about that? Let's just take 10 minutes out of the film just to do some weird stuff with the phones, and I don't know. It's a very silly scene, but at the same time, you're just like, I appreciate this.
It's hard to describe.
Yeah.
Like, this movie is hard. Like, if you were to sit and tell somebody about this film, I think it would confuse a lot of people because it's just really hard to describe. And so we're not really getting into a lot of specifics just because of, how hard it would be to describe this film. And that scene in particular. But there's one more part of this film that I think we need to touch on, and that's the music. And I did not know until you told me just a little bit ago that after everything that Jackie Chan did for this film, both from a stunt standpoint, directorial, writing, he also performed one of the songs. I did not know this until just now. what can this man do? Like, what can this man not do? I guess it's a better question. I mean, it's amazing, and it's not a bad song either. I actually really like the music in this film. What are your thoughts on the film's music, man?
I really like it most of the time. I do think they kind of spam certain songs a few times. Especially the main tune gets kind of repurposed for other ways, and they use different instrumentation. When it gets really silly is when Jackie's like friend is dressed up as that like Michael Myers type killer, and they're playing it all funky. It's like brr, brr, brr. I don't know that scene. I'm like, I wish they would have made that a little bit scarier, not so silly. Just because I think that would have made it even funnier, just personally. But that's the thing about the music. I really like it, especially in the action parts, because that repetition kind of pulls you into the scene a little bit more, and but it very much matches the vibe of the film, of just that era in history, and just I'm not going to use the word cheap to describe these films. I'm going to say that they were financially strapped, and we feel that in the music. We see that in like just how the film is shot, but I think that's what the charm of the film is, because you could tell that they did this in like 1 or 2 takes, because that's all they had for budget, but also because who could put their body through more than that? And that's why it looks so real at times, and when it's supposed to look fake, it looks fake, and you're supposed to. It's part of the charm of the film. I just think everybody should just watch it, just to experience it. It might not be your cup of tea, but it might kind of pull you in. At least it might have something in it that you like. So that's what I would say about it.
I think this is an interesting watch from a lot of standpoint. Obviously, Jackie Chan's a big part of this, and we've said it time and again. But I think, this guy is he's a legend by now, but we're talking 30, 40 years ago when he's first starting out, and he really puts a lot on the line, not to mention himself, to make this film. And so when you look at it in that context, and where his career went after this film, I think it's a pretty good start. And I think if you're a fan of Jackie Chan and you haven't seen this film and you just kind of want to see a different kind of vibe, I think this is a film you should definitely check out. And I will say that 100%. For me, and I think a lot of people out there, I think this is a multi-viewing situation to really appreciate this, like I mentioned earlier. Because even though I did enjoy the movie the first time, but as I told you off air, I was like, I didn't like it as much as I kind of wanted to, but I did enjoy it. It was definitely enjoyable. So I think it does, like a lot of movies do. And why that is, I don't know. I guess we could probably spend a whole show talking about that, but I think it's a positive to say that, though. I think it's a positive to want to go back and revisit something, especially like this, because there's just so much going on. And like a lot of movies, I'm pretty sure there's stuff I missed in the first viewing that you might see in the second and third and so on. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. And if it's a good experience, you want to relive that experience. You want to feel that elation again. For me, I just want to experience that again, that thrill of seeing this man risk his life and put it all on the line, like he said, just to master his craft, doing it. Go see it, guys. It's great. It's streaming somewhere. If not, it's worth your time.
It's
Max. Worth your money.
If you have HBO Max, go find it, because it's a film that you really should see, and I'm really glad we talked about it, and look forward to another viewing. But I'm also looking forward to what we got coming down the pike on our next episode, man.
That's right. This is a film that you always like to talk about. It's a movie about a play within a play. It's got some Inception type stuff going on, but its noise is off. It's got a great cast. I have not seen it in years, but I'm looking forward to looking at it again. And I forgot to mention, guys, this is a relic, by the way. They don't.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not on Blu-ray. This is not on 4K. This is a DVD that came out in 2003. There's only a few left in the world. I'm sure you have a copy at home. So
I do.
we're gonna watch this. We're gonna review this. I'm looking forward to it because I just remember John Ritter being awesome in it. I like him a lot.
Everybody's
Christopher
great.
Reeve, Michael Caine. It's good. It's good cast. Can't wait to watch it. And we love that you guys are getting into this show and checking us out, sharing it with your friends. That's awesome because we put a lot into this. If you haven't noticed that we've been trying to pick up our game, it's one of those things like the more you ride a bicycle, the better you get at it. And that's kind of how we've gotten with this whole show. And we're just continuing to challenge ourselves, trying to bring it more. And please take this journey with us. Be part of the SuperCaZt experience with us. And if you don't know where that is, check it out on YouTube. Look for us on Twitter, Facebook, wherever. I think we have some TikTok stuff going. So check it out. We plan on doing more. And just continue being super for you guys. So thanks for listening to this episode, this podcast, talking about a great film that I love. See you next time on the SuperCaZt.
Peace.